Allyn Johnston. So Allyn Johnston is a native Californian and vice president and publisher of Beach Lane Books at Simon & Schuster. This is a San Diego-based children's book imprint that Allyn founded on April Fool's Day. I like that little tidbit, in 2008, because it just suggests fun. Allyn is especially interested in young picture books, and among the many authors she's worked with, they include Mem Fox, Maria Frazee, Mark Teague, Lauren Stringer, and Cynthia Ryland. And of course, the person we're here to celebrate tonight, Lois Ehlert. So Allyn is going to share her life work with Lois over 35 years and how they've produced these beloved children's books. So please join me in a very warm welcome to Allyn Johnston.
Thank you so much, Amy, and thanks to all of you for being here tonight. I found a note when I was pulling together this talk that Lois had mailed to me, and it said, "Hi. The weekend before last, I led with the staff of the Art Museum 2 days of children's workshops for art in bloom. What a mob, what fun! It reaffirms my belief in art and human nature." She loved this place, and she loved working with all of you here. Okay, so Lois and I first met when I was 24, and I was an editorial assistant at Harcourt Brace Yovanovitch in San Diego, or HBJ as it was called then. We went on to work together for 35 years, and we made 28 books. There are books on there that I didn't work on with her, but that is a spread that we put into Scraps, one of her books. And while we were working on a book called Feathers for Lunch, she learned that I had been a bird watcher since I was a little girl, and she started calling me Tweeter. And so I was Tweeter. Lois loved nicknames, and she had been given the nickname Curly since she was at the Leighton School of Art here in Milwaukee, and because of her naturally curly hair, which she did spend a lot of time straightening, as you can see from that picture. Our first book together was, Lois had gotten out of school and wanted to be a children's book author, illustrator, and did a book. And in fact, I have it right here. Pat, her sister-in-law, Pat Ehlert, just showed it to me tonight. It's called I Like Orange. And she got it, and she was so unhappy with it because the color reproduction at the time was so poor. And she said, I'm not going to do children's books anymore. This book looks like I hate orange. And, but two friends of hers who were librarians, Ginny Moore Cruz, who ran the CCBC at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Jane Botham, who was the librarian director here in Milwaukee, convinced her to not give up and to keep up her confidence, and she made this book called Growing Vegetable Soup, which took a couple years for her to sell, for her agent to sell. Her agent, Liza Voge, is here tonight too, as are Ginny Moore Cruz and Jane Botham. And we were so thrilled. I mean, we loved, it's this young concept book, really simple idea of planting a vegetable garden and then making soup at the end. And we were really proud of ourselves that we'd made such a fantastic publishing decision. And then the first review came in. I have to say, because Lois was so excited that we finally a publisher was finally able to get color good. So then the first review came in, which said the book had psychedelically bright illustrations that were painfully vivid, jumping around on the page to the point of diverting any pattern or information conveyed. A plausible notion for a book, shouted down by garish illustrations. But Lois was undeterred, and over 36 years later, the book is still in print in many different formats. And I like to say that one of the reasons why is because she was taken under the wing of Pat Van Alje, who was, Pat, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Alje? Okay. Pat had a bookstore here called the Book Bay, a children's bookstore, and she invited Lois to come do a signing and also decorate the window of the store in honor of this book. And Lois showed up with this giant carrot that she made. So I'm convinced that the Pat and this bookstore showing and the book, the display and this giant carrot are part of the reason why Growing Vegetable Soup got such a great start in life. Lois was a passionate lover of folk art and collector of folk art throughout her life, and folk art from all over the world. And it just surrounded her everywhere in her apartment and in her studio, and as you can see, beautifully displayed. This poor little porcupine did need some dusting before I didn't know that till after I took the picture. And she just was fueled, her soul was fueled by folk art and by color. And she, at one point, decided that she wanted to she was going to try to do a book that was using her folk art in some way, telling a picture book with her folk art collection. And so we did this book called Market Day. And I mean, usually Lois's books got fantastic reviews and she got tons of acclaim and awards and everything, and this didn't follow this was years after the Growing Vegetable Soup review from Kirkus. I promised I wasn't gonna say the name, but oops, I did. But anyway, we got Market Day. Market Day came out and it was getting great reviews. And then this one arrived from a Chicago publication. Well, this is an interesting idea. The execution is muddied, the compositions are crowded and hard to see, and it is difficult to extract meaning from the visuals. Okay, now, I don't know about you guys, but does that look hard to understand? Can you extract meaning from the visuals? I can. And it was certainly not a fun email or review to mail to Lois, but her calm and her wisdom prevailed. Found the review disconcerting, tweeter, but upon reflection, I always hope to learn from comments. I consider Market Day an art book. Not everyone loves art, and certainly not folk art. Thanks for allowing me the freedom to experiment. Crowded compositions and all. Soon after that review arrived, we got one from Kirkus. They redeemed themselves, which is just so beautiful. Listen to this. There is an element of childlike play in this, reminiscent of the way children create and act out stories by combining toys of various origins and disparate sizes, and through the power of imagination, create a world that is entirely their own. It's just the perfect description of what Lois was trying to do. And we concluded with Lois was the queen of beautiful back matter, and this was, where did they come from? What are they made of? Tracing all the origins of all of the pieces that she used in the book. Normally, I would not know what Lois was working on while she was working on it. You could tell in her voice that something was up, and she loved to sort of tease me, but she wouldn't tell me in advance. And what would happen is I would get a phone call from her agent, Liza, in New York, and she'd say, "Hi, Allyn. I got something for you from Lois. I think you're gonna like it." And then she would pop it into FedEx, and it would arrive the next day. And like this. This was a book that Lois had wanted to do for a long time. She loved the title, Flutterby, and it was a book about butterflies. And this is how it arrived, this handmade dummy with the type written in, both for the regular text and the sidebars. And these are all original little drawings of the butterflies. And Lois was just a consummate researcher and just a passionate natural history lover. And this was beautiful. I mean, it looked like a museum piece, but that was kind of the problem. To me, it felt kind of static. It didn't soar, no pun intended, like her other books seemed to previously. So, but she had, but there was something going on here, and she was really interested, wanted very much to do a book about butterflies. And we got to this page here at the end, and then she had this note that said, "The following spreads will be wall-to-wall flowers with butterflies as noted." And then she has a list of like she didn't do things, it looks beautiful, it looks simple, but like it was all planned. Like these are real flowers that butterflies, these specific butterflies eat the nectar from. So this is how the book ended up after months of us going round and round. And these, you can't really see from this picture, but it was die cut at the beginning so we could have the same plants in the background, and the little pages would turn and you could start seeing the caterpillars that came out of their chrysalises, and then they'd start eating the little the white dots are the eggs, and then they turn into butterflies, and again, more die cuts, and then they fly and they land on all the flowers that were planted by this butterfly garden that a child and their dad planted together. And she got all of her back matter in here, and identification, the flowers, more information about butterflies, and then how to grow a butterfly garden. Lois's books, she up until, well, it didn't follow this particular book, but she always wrote and illustrated her own books with me. She did other things at other houses that other people had written, but we never had a problem where she had kind of hit a wall and didn't have a new idea. And I was feeling like a really bad editor because I wasn't helping her. I mean, I just didn't know what to do, because people used to always tell me, you got to make Lois do a book about this or that, but she didn't want to take ideas from people. She wanted them to really come right out of her heart, which I completely respected. But this book was published by Simon & Schuster a couple of years before I started there, and I had a copy, I don't know why, but I had a copy randomly in my office, and I pulled it out one day, and I looked at this cover, and I thought, that butterfly looks familiar, and that mouse looks kind of familiar. I wonder, and I mean, I'd literally never paged through this book, and it was a collection of poems that Bill Martin Jr. loved, and he's the guy who wrote Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, and but they'd had all these different artists illustrate various poems in there. So I was flipping through it, and I found this poem that is by Bill. Most of these poems were written by other people, but this one is written by Bill. It's called 10 Little Caterpillars. The first little caterpillar crawled into a bower. The second little caterpillar wriggled up a flower. The third little caterpillar climbed a cabbage head. The fourth little caterpillar found a melon bed. The fifth little caterpillar sailed a garden pool. The sixth little caterpillar was carried off to school. The seventh little caterpillar met a hungry wren. The eighth little caterpillar was frightened by a hen. The ninth little caterpillar fell into the sea. The 10th little caterpillar scaled an apple tree and hung there patiently until by and by the 10th little caterpillar became a butterfly. So I thought, wow, like that is a beautiful poem, and Lois has already liked it enough to illustrate it for this collection. And so I left the book on the desk of my colleague who I've been working with since I hired her first out of college in 2020. And her name's Andrea Welch, and she's now an executive editor with me at Beach Lane. And I left her this note: do you see this poem by Bill Martin Jr. working as a Lois PB? And I came in the next day, and she'd written over. Yes, love it. So I called up her. Lois has an agent who, Liza represents Lois for the book she wrote and illustrated, and she has another agent named Libby Ford who represents her when she's not writing the stories. And I asked Libby if she would ask Lois, and Lois said, I loved it so much when I was working on it. I always thought it could be a picture book. I can't believe I never thought of it. So yes, I want to do it. And so she started, and she just was, as she put it, this book was just nothing but joy. It just poured out of me, and she was done with this book in like 4 months. And I'm going to just show you here just an interspersing of her dummy pages and some finishes. So this was the title page, and my note here is no pillars, just leaves, as in no caterpillars. So, so here we have, this is just like its color Xeroxes, and you can see her hand lettering of the line. She liked to write in the type so she could see how much space it would take up. And so there's the finish, like nothing basically changed. I love this, the garden pool. One sailed a garden pool, it's such a beautiful line, and the magic that she put into that. And here's the hungry wren. And when we'd been working on this book for quite a while, and I said to her, Lois, I'm worried about all these caterpillars, and she said, "Tweeter, kids know caterpillars lead a precarious life." So this is kind of wonderful, this ending. It's just important for you guys to notice this. This is the beauty of a picture book. This is one sentence that's now stretched out over 4 pages and for 3 seasons. "The 10th little caterpillar scaled an apple tree and hung patiently." Now these are some editorial notes. I thought that the rhyme or the rhythm would work better if we had added the word "there." And then Andrea said, "What these sort of gray blobs that are supposed to be snow, they're kind of confusing. Are they working?" And then, so there's the finish, "and hung there patiently." Lois loved this cardinal. She'd done other cardinals in other books, but this one she used to say, "He's just washed his hair and he can't do a thing with it." Until by and by, the 10th little caterpillar became a butterfly. And this is kind of wonderful because this is the dummy piece, and here's the finish, and you can just see like how she slightly changed the butterfly, the tiger swallowtail, and the way that the buddleia is just kind of bobbing there on the right side, just you can feel sort of movement more in there. And then she did, this is just she did once again the glossary idea where she just expanded upon the more natural history about the caterpillars and the butterflies that they turn into. So we were done with this one, and I was kind of greedy. Oh, sorry, wait, I finished this. We got to the cover, and we like this, of course, this hen, which is a hen that she saw at the state fair, that she'd taken a picture of, and she was so excited because she finally got to put it in a book because the picture was taken like 20 years before. But we really wanted to get the idea across that it was counting, so we did this cover, and plus she was so happy because she got to put a heart on there, and so we have the 10 caterpillars. So anyway, I got kind of greedy because that was a really fun idea, way to make a book come out of nowhere, and she'd also illustrated this other poem in the collection by an English poet. I'm embarrassed to say I'd never heard of this poem, but it's been illustrated by a lot of people, and it's in schools all the time. It's called Mice, and her name's Rose Fileman. "I think mice are rather nice. Their tails are long, their faces small, they haven't any chins at all. Their ears are pink, their teeth are white, they run about the house at night. They nibble things they shouldn't touch, and no one seems to like them much. But I think mice are nice." So in the many versions that have been illustrated before, the narrator was always a child. And Lois just, when I asked her about this, she said, "The narrator could be a cat," which instantly just gave the whole thing this fantastic narrative tension. So here's the cover, and there's the flap copy. And then underneath the flap copy, hidden by the average person, but kids would notice, there's the cat. But you're not going to see it right away, so you might you wouldn't even think of it if. It's also fun to see how she changed. They're in the spirit of her original ones, but she changed them, and then how the color in the book itself is way better than these slides. But when I was taking the photos in my studio in San Diego, it was the day the clouds were coming and going, and so some of the photos are on a bright sunny moment, and then when the clouds came in, it changed the color. But so here they are nibbling things they shouldn't touch, and no one seems to like them much. Which this is just such a great moment to explain. I just love the pacing here. We could have, many artists would have put the word "much" on this page, and no one seems to like them, and then you get to take advantage of the page turn feature of a picture book, which is one of its greatest strengths, that it's this piece of theater, this stage of theater on which the story and the pictures unfold. No one seems to like them much, and then, but I think mice are nice. And we got to do that. It was her idea to have a little die-cut mouse hole here, so when you turn the page, the mice are inside and safe. So then I was really getting overconfident, because this was the third and last poem that she'd illustrated in the book, and it was about a woodpecker pecking a hole in a telephone pole, and then a storm came, and that the woodpecker could hide in the hole that it made, but it didn't really have any narrative arc, so we couldn't really make a picture book out of it. But she stole the art style, because she used it for this fantastic book that was inspired by jokes that her brother Dick used to tell his kids, Maggie and Jane. And I bet you won't believe me, but our dog can talk. I found out when we first brought him home, and I asked, "What's your name?" You guys can join in if you want. Ralph, 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 Ralph. This is so fascinating. This is Lois usually typed manuscripts, but this was one of the rounds, and it's handwritten, and she has the different colors for the main body of the text, the black, and then what's your name is the child asking questions, and then Ralph's comments are in purple, and then I can't believe this when I look at it now. I mean, that's my blue writing right on her original. It's kind of mortifying that I did that, but anyway, I did. So we built a house for him and a really high fence all around our backyard. Hey, Ralph, where are you? Roof, 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 roof. This little name tag is cut out of a pizza pan, a little foil pizza pan. Ralph likes to chase the backyard birds. I always tell him no, but he never listens. Ralph, what's on that tree? Bark, 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 bark. And then it ends with him going to sleep. And the original line was just, good night, sleepyhead, or a version of that. And then Andrea, my colleague, had the brilliant, then we were playing around see you tomorrow, but then Andrea said, why don't you just go, because talk to you tomorrow is such a thing we say to each other, talk to you tomorrow, but it's also so perfect because Ralph's the talking dog, so great final line. And not only was Ralph a talker, but he also could send mail. He sent me this postcard from the New Yorker. There's a dog in Wisconsin that tells jokes. And Ralph agreed that happened. So everything that Lois did in her books, she did by hand. She did not use the computer. And so when she was working on a project, every single time she came, like this one, different trim sizes, different ideas for the cover. And she would make a new dummy and send it to me. Now, it wasn't all original art every time she did it. She kept Kinko's in business for many years with her color Xeroxing. But this was the final cover of Pie in the Sky. And she just would retool and refine until she got it right. She once said, I think sometimes people think that people who do stylized art and or people who do collage art don't know how to draw. But that was definitely not the case with Lois. She was a highly trained and skilled designer, and she did use, her favorite typeface to use was Century School Book. She loved the way it was really easy it was friendly for young children, particularly ones who were learning to read. And these are just a couple interior spreads which just show how beautiful, like this was one when she was getting it really nailed down, how just much care she put into the process before she did the originals. And she also loved to have small type. She used to say, like when I was little and she was the oldest, so Dick and Shirley they'd go to the library and bring home a bunch of books, and she loved it when there were books that had things that would appeal to the littler ones and to her, and so she tried to do that a lot in her books. And once Lois's dummies came into focus, or her concepts, what we worked on was really the text usually. The art didn't usually need any art direction or editorial direction. So she got this idea to do a book about a maple tree, and it was so great. It was the first time she did dimensional collage, so she was using real things. She sent the art in these boxes that she handmade that stack was like that high, and she used things like real maple tree roots, and we were so fired up because we thought it was just, it looked beautiful in real life, real burlap and handmade kite and bird treats. And then we sent it off for test proofs, and we got these back. Now they've been around a long time, that's why they're all crinkled, but we got these test proofs, and they just, I thought that I couldn't believe how terrible it looked. And of course, we'd sent them straight from the printer to Lois and to me, and we had them in the office, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Art is all done. But, so I had to call her up and say, Lois, and she said, Tweeter, don't even say it, it's not working. I have to send it all back to me. And I did, and she took it all apart, and she made watercolor washes and put it behind all the pages in the book, and you can see how it just sprang to life. And this is the first time we did an interior die cut with her, and we loved it because with this red leaf, so when you turn the page, like it's yellow on the other one. So that's my favorite time. Can you guess why? And then we had the cover, and this was the cover. And I mean, had been the cover the whole time, and she loved it because she loved this little love note from the child to the tree. But once she got all the art renovated and it was looking so dramatic, I just thought this cover it's not conveying what the book is. So these were the front end papers with the die cut leaf, there's the title page, and these were the back end papers. And I was sitting at my desk one day and I just thought, oh my God, that should be the cover. And I called her up and I said, okay, Curly, this is so weird. I've never done this before, but I'm about to propose that we use your back end papers for the cover art. And she thought, okay, that worked. That's a good idea. So that's how that book ended up coming out. And then we rescue the little Valentine to the tree there in the back matter. Lois, among her folk art, she loved fish. She didn't eat fish, but she loved fish as art and loved to look at fish. And she had a number of fish in her folk art collection, including these gorgeous fish decoys. And she had done fish eyes early on in her career, the counting book. But she got this idea that she wanted to, she lived really close by, I don't know which direction we are, but just a few blocks away. And she would walk around and pick up things and just see beauty everywhere. And she said, I know I'm odd. I think I often see things that others don't see. And I see things, especially on windy or rainy days, I see things on the sidewalk or in the gutter, and they just kind of remind me of fish, and they just sort of like, they appear, and then the wind blows, and they go away, or the water flows, and they wash away. But I want to try to do this. I want to try to do this book that's capturing that magic and that whimsy, and so she did, and it was called Rainfish. And I think this is one of her most misunderstood books by adults because it's sort of random, but it's so wise. And it's I have three photographs of the original art. It was also all-dimensional collage, and so there's the color isn't, the book doesn't look this washed out in real life, but it's just, okay, so this is like a real bottle cap, real stick, real feather, real bone thing for the eye, and there it is. And then here's another fish with a magnetic letter for an eye, and then there it is in the book, and these two gorgeous beauties with a real shell, and there's the page in the book, and it's just like sailors try to catch rainfish, or look out for them, but when they try to catch them, rainfish always swim away. I loved it because I found that little fish bobber on the beach in San Diego, and I sent it to her, and she used it in the book. And so sorry, rainfish always swim away. And then there's the back end paper, and then once again, fantastic back matter. She just used to talk about how a lot of kids don't have art supplies, and I just wanted with this book to convey the idea that there's art supplies everywhere, even in trash. This morning, I'm staying at the Pfister, and this morning I went out, I just, under the trick, I tricked myself thinking I was just going out to get a coffee at my new favorite coffee place, Andiamo, and, but I ended up going up to her apartment building, and I just stood outside, and I started picking up leaves on my way over there, and I brought them back to my room and took this picture. Wasn't planning on doing anything with it in this show, but see that little thing on the far, left? That little kind of, it's a broken light. But when, oh shit, oh God, what did I do? Ah, help, tech. It's a broken piece of light, and when I was walking by for a second, the light flashed on it, and it's a heart. Thank you very much, Amy. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a little heart. Okay, here it's Lois. It would have been her 89th birthday, and I'm standing outside, like, right in her neighborhood. And I'm literally standing there looking up at, I mean, of course, it reminded me of her book, Leaf Man. I'm looking up at her apartment windows, and I'm not looking too closely because I didn't want to see anybody else's stuff in the windows. And coming down from the sky was a tiny little maple leaf, green maple leaf that looked exactly like this one at the beginning of red leaf, yellow leaf. And none of the trees around me had any leaves on them anymore at all. And it was, I just watched it doing that thing that they do, twirling all the way down, and it landed right at my feet. And I blew my mind, and I went, got a coffee, brought all my leaves, including that one, back to my room to take that picture, and the leaf was not there. And I was just like, okay, what? That's just the weirdest thing. It was nowhere. Okay, so then I got ready. I spoke at MyAd this morning to some illustration students, and I had to get going. And I was so rattled that the leaf was gone. And I was walking to the elevator, and it was on the ground in the hall next to that rose on the carpet in the Pfister. So, I mean, Lois has been with us all, and she's definitely been with me today. One day, she sent me a dummy with a note, a new dummy, and it said, I'd really like to do something that would be encouraging. I'm going to back up for a second. I'd be encouraging to a young person, to the child at the back of the room who might not be the biggest talker, and maybe use my life as an example, but not an I love me book, which is what my mom would have called it. That's Lois saying that. And so this arrived, Artie. Get it? Artie? And so we embarked on this journey, and it unexpectedly turned into like the longest editorial project that we'd worked. It took us 3 years to nail this book. She missed multiple deadlines, which she'd never done in her past. We had lots of different trim sizes, titles, covers. At one point she said, Tweeter, I would want to dedicate this book to you, but I don't want to if it's not good enough, so push me all you want. And so 3 years later, we published this amazing book. If you don't know it, really do yourself a favor and get a copy, or at least look at one, because it's filled with much, much wisdom, and it begins with Lois. When I was little, I read all the books on the library shelf, and I thought that maybe someday I could make a book. It's a combo of reminiscences from her life, but also pieces from all of her books, and just kind of talking about what inspires her. And that's the house she grew up in. Those are her parents. Again, her parents and her mom's scissors, her dad's paintbrushes. And then here's some an early piece that has eating the alphabet, growing vegetable soup, and planting a rainbow. And wait, hold on a second. She really was a naturalist, and she was a documenter, and she loved to capture process and say if you ever get to Milwaukee or Minneapolis, go to the University of Minnesota. The Curlin Collection is a collection of original materials from children's literature, and Lois donated all of her, speaking of giving more things, donated all of her working things to the Curlin. So there's original art, all these process and dummies and correspondence, and oh my goodness, there I go again, sorry. But after we finally finished Scraps and published it, she sent me this note, which I love so much. Heard an interview with Joseph Heller yesterday. Someone asked him why he didn't write more books because he's so popular. He simply said he couldn't go any faster. Amen to that, babe. So what she really wanted to do was inspire children to pay attention to the beauty of our world and to make things of their own and to have fun while she was doing it. And like she really does say it best at the end of Scraps. You might ask, why did I choose to become an artist? I think maybe it's the other way around. Art chose me. If you feel that way too, I hope you'll find a spot to work and begin. Lois loved Valentine's Day, and she had for years Valentine's parties in her apartment. And she used to say, how how did she put it? Let me get it right. She felt like February was a tough time for creative people in this part of the world because it was so colorless. So she would decorate her apartment and have people over, and there may be some people in this room who were at these parties. I unfortunately was not, but I found this photograph online. I've since purchased it, and it's gonna be waiting for me when I get home, but that's Lois, and it's just so fantastic. So she loved Valentine's Day, and she loved hearts. She put a heart in all of her books, starting at Growing Vegetable Soup, and she would love to encourage kids to look for them. She also had hearts on her stationery, and she loved rebuses too. Okay, I found this when I was pulling together this show. This is dated from 1992, and she made that rebus. And then this is a Christmas, this is just a bulletin board in my studio, but this is a rebus she made for a Christmas card. She used to make Christmas cards every year, and so she was really into rebuses and Valentines for many, many years, and we both loved the classic old Valentines with the bad puns, with vegetables and fruit. And so one day she said, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can do a Valentine's book. So she went to work, and the rest of us, wear sweats. Lois has got like matching pink socks to this gorgeous pink blouse. She didn't always dress that well when she was working, and this is her combo of bedroom, and then on the other side of that wall with that art display, that's her studio space. That's where she worked and made all her books in this. I mean, she stretched out when she was like drying things on the floor in other places, but this is where she made all of her books. And there's the watermelon from the front of Market Day. And she loved this tree because all the birds are out. They're not in a bird cage. They're all, just anyway, keeping her company. A number of those her brother Dick made. But so there's her scissors, and here we worked in many places together. This was stretched out on her bed. This is me in my dining room working on a dummy and then talking on the phone with her. And then here we are at Buckley's right nearby when we were late in the process of, she was showing me a version of it. And there it all is laid out. And she was so excited because, this book drove the managing editors, the copy editors crazy because the puns are so bad, and they're also, like, some of them are harder than others, but she loved that because she thought it was going to be fun for the older kids and fun it's too easy. She kept saying, well, it's no fun if it's really easy. So here's Heart to Heart. I've been thinking of you. And we have the little labels. Avocado crush on you. Do you care at all for me? Please give a sign or cue. So this is the front flap that we did, and we did this book, and then she got ill, and she wasn't, and then it sort of was the beginning of a long series of things that made her compromise in her ability to use her hands to make things. So at one point, she said to me, it was really kind of clear to all of us that she probably wasn't going to do another book. And she said, Tweeter, because it's really a Valentine to the world. If this has to be my last book, it's not a bad one to go out on, is it? And no, it wasn't a bad one to go out on, but as it turned out, it wasn't her last book, because after she died, her family found a dummy that she'd been working on amongst her things, and it's called Red and Green, and this is all made by Lois by hand when she was in an extremely physically compromised state, and you cannot tell from the way that it's all cut up. You'll see later the writing starts to get a little bit wobbly. This book is so technically complicated in that it's filled with die cuts. So that wreath right there, it's like it's cut. So, and then this little house, the chimney, can you see the little? And all the way through this, she planned this all. Mostly from like almost being in her hospital bed. There's a die cut there where the little mouse hole is through the center of the wreath, and So Pat said to me, called me up one day and said, Allyn, you know, we found this, and would you be interested in looking at it? Maybe we could make a book out of it. And I said, oh my God, yes, I would be very willing to, very much look at it. I was really scared for it to arrive safely. It did, and I took this series of, well, actually I made a little video of it, of just turning the pages, and sent it to my colleague Andrea, and I said, you know, I feel too close to Lois. I just can't tell. Do you think there's something here? And she said, I think it's brilliant. We have to publish it. But the problem was that the artwork Lois wasn't here to make the artwork, and so we got our art director, one of our art directors, whose name is Lois Ehlert, involved, and she said she never worked with Lois, but she loved the handmade vibe of all of her books. And so she said, I think we can do this. We can keep the handmade feeling, but we'll do it in Photoshop. And that's what she did. So check this one out, this one. Then somebody said, who ate my snack? And then it ends like this. Now you'll see, this is a really great one because she was using just construction paper as her rough draft paper, but the little red corner and the green corner was giving her a sense of what she was going to be thinking about, which thank God we were able to have that, just so we knew that she didn't plan on having it be just the construction paper colors. So we made it into a book, and we just published it in September. And one thing about the dummy was that there's a main character, this mouse, but he isn't in any of the art. And she just had this one piece of art that was separate that Pat sent me, and there it was, and it was just like, okay, what are we going to do with it? We can use it on the flap copy, but it just, the book seemed to feel like it needed a little bit more personality of this mouse because he was so fantastic. So we ended up using the same mouse. We didn't do anything to him, but we moved him and put him in a couple spots. So there he is, tucked in for sleep until somebody shows up and says, who ate my treat? But all through the house, not a creature was stirring except, and you can see his tail there, a small mouse, but we don't have the text, so there he is. So, yeah, it was very bizarre to work on a book of Lois's that didn't have Lois to talk to, but we channeled her, and one of the things that she did, which you can't really see in these slides, is she had a few of the pieces in the original dummy were cut out of foil paper colors, and so the Christmas tree, some of the balls on the tree are foil. So the book that Lois is most known for is Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, and this was the page about Chicka it doesn't talk about Chicka, but this is the art from Chicka that was in scraps. And I was not at Simon & Schuster. I didn't have anything to do with Chicka. I was always jealous of that. But when I came to Beach Lane and Simon & Schuster, Chicka was coming on to its 20th anniversary, and they let me do, with Lois, a 20th anniversary edition where Lois made this little Pantone guide, and we refreshed, as they say, all the artwork. And so we did a new edition of because over time, the printing plates, the film can get a little faded, and so we had this new vibrant edition, which is the one we're using now. I had this wonderful evening with Lois's family last night, who I didn't know all of them until then, and Jane was talking about how hearing all the effusive comments that came from the world, from people that had been so touched by Lois's work that none of us knew and Lois didn't know because of the book she made. And this is a true story that happened to me, my son, when he went to college. Went to school in D.C., and that freshman fall, you're nervous, you don't have any friends, and you kind of say yes to different social activities, and he was invited to go over to some girls' dorm room with a few other kids, and they were just going to hang out. And he didn't know the girl really very well, but there were about 7 of them or whatever. And he walked into this room, and there was a copy of Chicka face out on the bookshelf, and he said, wait. He didn't say, my mom knows her, but he just said, why do you have that in here? And the young woman said, my roommate is having a really hard time. She's really homesick. And this was her favorite book when she was little. And her mom just sent her this copy to make her feel better and be more connected to home. So I feel like that's the kind of, having the privilege to be able to have worked for so long with a person like Lois, who touched so many children in her work and became something that someone would still be moved by when they were in college, because it was a book that was their childhood favorite. It's just like so, I mean, it's kind of a holy thing to be, that Lois gave to the world. So today is her 89th birthday, and there she is in her apartment with her flower pots, and I just want to close with this quote that I just feel really sums it all up about Lois and her view of the world and her work. And this is kind of in relation to not only her books, but also doing workshops with children here and at the here, other places, but specifically here at the museum. You never really know where these things are going to lead. How many of these children are going to end up being artists or writers when they grow up? But at least you've opened the door. As I always say to the children, there will be some day when I won't be able to do artwork anymore. You're the ones who are going to have to do the next books. You are the next generation. So happy birthday to you, Lois, and thank you all for coming. And yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions, and I'll just, we don't really have a mic to pass around, but if you want to just kind of shout it, and I'll repeat it if you have any questions. Oh, gosh. She really is so present in this neighborhood, especially for me, and we went to Beans and Barley for lunch, which was her spot, and what else? Yeah, I was when I was picking up stuff on the ground today. I did see some young people looking at me like, what's that lady doing? Is she picking up trash? Like, what's going on over there? But anyway, does anybody have anything they want to say or add or ask? No pressure, but. And there are, the bookstore has books for sale out in the hall, I think, in the lobby. What? Oh, that way, okay, I thought, yeah, there we go. Thank you all for coming, really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Allyn. That was incredible. Oh. I just want to give one more plug. Really, if you want to take a few minutes to make some art, I think it would just, you know.
Can you tell us where that is?
I'm going to tell you exactly where that is, and we can all head that way. So yeah, the studio, which is in the center of the galleries, is on the same floor, and you can make a piece of art to take home to remember this very special Lois birthday, and also to add to the mural. There's beautiful papers, and we would love to give you a moment to be creative in honor of Lois's birthday. So thank you again, Allyn. That was wonderful, and thank you all for coming.
And thanks to the tech department for their awesome lighting. I appreciate it so much. And to you for saving me from my problem there.